Hello and welcome to Lorien Live. I'm so happy that you took time out of your day to spend with us. And I'm really excited to have Ashley back here today. And we are diving into a topic that comes up almost every day in our world, and that is the topic of resumes. And we are going to focus today on the art of crafting a really standout resume, how to approach that. I think you're going to find some unique ways of looking at it. And I hope that you will really keep an open mind and be open to the idea that perhaps some of what's not working well for you right now, if you're having some hurdles, can be changed by taking a different approach. So Ashley, welcome. So glad to have you here with me today.
Yeah, lovely to be here, and I'm so excited to talk about resumes. It's been quite a wild ride. I think we were just talking about the fact that about 10 of these together. So, yeah, practice makes perfect. Get ready for the best Lorien Live between Chelyn and I.
I love it. I love it. And for all of you, today is going to be a little unique in that we're going to share some content and then we're going to transition and really ask you to participate and to kind of dig deep. We're going to use an example that is not Salesforce specific. So it's outside of the space that we normally work in, just to make it so that it's that you're working through the exercise. And I hope that it will really showcase to you a way that you can walk away from this time with Ashley and I together and tackle your resume. Maybe over the weekend, you'll be inspired to come up with a new version. And we're going to go ahead and turn on a PowerPoint here. So again, we're focused on the art of crafting a standout resume. And Ashley, I'm going to turn it over to you for a few.
Perfect. So we wanted to kick this off with honestly what every resume starts off as, which is a blank canvas. And this can be the most frightening territory and the most daunting space where you have just the entire world at your disposal to put on this resume, all of your experiences, where to start, what to focus on. And yeah, how do you stand out when you see all these finished masterpieces all around you sometimes? Like this. This is the after of what those blank canvases can like. So I think sometimes when you're crafting your resume, it is just really important to think of yourself as a commissioned artist. What are you doing per se to cater your work and cater your resume and cater your experiences to that next opportunity that you want and to that hiring manager that will be reviewing your resume? How are you thinking about what they want, and how are you really highlighting your skills and what you can specifically do for them? What makes you that high commissioned artist? What makes you that person that they chose above all of others? And yeah, making a resume is art at the end of the day. You get an entire blank canvas of space to work on, and you get to craft something beautiful at the end of the day, something that describes you, that wholly depicts what you can do in that next position and for that next hiring manager that gets the privilege to read your resume.
Love that. I think that's so true. And I know that on a daily basis, because we work with so many candidates and hiring managers, people want sort of that magic template that's going to be just the right, let me use this template, tell me exactly how to use it. And there really isn't a right template. So there's some really advised ways to approach it. There's formats that are going to work better than others. But at the end of the day, I hope that we can all just take a step back and really think in terms of what is so unique and special. And for those of us that are making changes, about really honoring your path and having some interest and excitement about their creation instead of it feeling like so much drudgery. I know that many of us, it's such a challenging endeavor to create a resume, update a resume, and there's so much, I guess, different advice out there. So one thing I do want to just acknowledge up front is that Ashley and I are sharing some of our individual opinions. We have a lot of feedback from the recruiting teams and hiring managers. I've been a hiring manager for many years and know my preferences, but I do want to acknowledge that you will hear just this huge range of advice. And sometimes it's very heated, the topic. So do know that these are personal opinions. We've seen it work, and I am looking forward to diving in a little deeper. And first of all, who in here? So pop in the chat. Who are our car people? What cars are you seeing in these images? Anybody know?
I wish I did. I'm not a car person.
Well, I want you all to imagine that you are flipping through a magazine or flipping through images on the internet, and you run across these two images. Which one are you most likely to? Yes, it is definitely an Audi. Do you know which one? Which image are you most likely to take a look at and want to look deeper? So this is the electronic Audi. So it's a beautiful vehicle, but they're actually the same. They're in a different colors, but it's the same vehicle. And I hope the point is clear that how we present ourselves makes a huge difference. And we see a lot of resumes that look an awful lot like the parked car, instead of being able to really envision this, the details, the vehicle on the road really doing what it's meant to do. So I want to make sure that as we go down this path, that it's clear that you are unique and special. All of your certifications and your experiences and your network and all of those things are so important. And often I think especially those of us in more technical roles who haven't done much in sales and marketing, this just maybe feels disingenuous sometimes. And just like, I don't want to, be in marketing. I just want to be appreciated for the skills that I have and the experience. But at the end of the day, when someone doesn't know you and you're really looking to either elevate your career, make a shift, or be found and known by people who don't know you yet, it really makes a huge difference what you put out there. And I have to say, what people are willing to pay is really impacted by what you put out there as well. So this gentleman he's a physician. He's really interesting, intellectual, and there are studies that have shown that 90% of errors in thinking is due to an error in perception. And this is very internal. His point was internal, that if you can change your perception, you can change your emotion, and this can lead to new ideas. What I would like to encourage all of us to consider is, if we can impact the perception that recruiters and hiring managers have about us, that we can change the emotion in that situation and really lead people to have ideas that may be different than their first opinion. Or for those of us who maybe don't have this beautiful resume that, flows from beginning to current with this trajectory that makes sense for the next job. And I would say that's many people, that spending the time really thinking about the perception is so important, that the emotions that you're activating, that you can create how people are thinking and the ideas that they have about you. So this is where sometimes it takes a leap of faith, but stick with me for a while. And earlier today, I posted, are you an iPhone or an Android lover? And I want to just convey that spending some time looking at the Apple website and noticing their marketing is really powerful. And it's something that I would encourage all of us to think about in terms of our resume, our LinkedIn profile, communications throughout our career. And you really are a marketer at this stage, and the work that you're doing in your job search, whether that's internal for a promotion or a different opportunity, or just a brand new job, or getting onto a board or anything else, there is marketing involved. One thing that Apple does so beautifully is everything is really clean and clear. It's appealing. They're incredibly careful about the font they use, the color that they use, the size of things. It is why many of us, spend over $1,000 on a phone. That there are some of us who have iPhones that really know how to use it and take advantage of the technology. But myself, and I'd say many people, use the phone, we text, we get on Gmail, we have a few apps, and that's about it. Take lots of pictures. And we could do that with phones that are much less expensive. So I just encourage you to take some lessons from Apple, see what they're doing. And when you look at your resume, think about how that makes you feel. Do you have fonts that are easy to read, that convey the energy that you want? Do you have the white space there? If you use color, is it very strategic? Another really great example that Apple uses is the messaging, the words they choose. So if you go check out their website and read it, they're so good at making it about me as the consumer and not about just the technology. So when you're crafting your resume, how can you positively impact their life from their point of view, their organization, or them personally? And I love this example that Apple is talking about. And this is the next phone, is a camera's a class by its selfie, right? It's clever, really easy to read, snap your sharpest, most colorful close-ups and group shots thanks to this new technology, right? And it's showing that view from the person, like, I'm wanting to capture these moments. This is a great example for you to consider with your resume. Are you writing it in a way that's really clear and engaging? Is it succinct, what you're saying? The words that you're using all have a purpose, and it's in the view and from the point of view for the recruiter or the hiring manager. This is another one from Apple, and it's about impact and investing the time and being really deliberate with your resume to spark deeper thinking. So again, back to that impacting perception, changing the way people feel and think. What's unique about you? So this was something that's come up with the new phone, and they're focusing on this, is crash detection, calls for help when you can't. And they're designed to detect the severity of accident, and it sends a message to you. If you don't respond, it calls, for emergency assistance. So this is something for most people when they're buying a phone, right? Just like somebody who's trying to hire someone, this may not be on their list, but because they included this and they know that their target market is often people who care about family, they have family, they care about themselves. This is something that was brought forward that I wouldn't have thought of. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And somehow it increased the value of what I'd be willing to pay, because what if I did need it? What if my kids needed it? So think about those things of how can you convey richer information in a way that makes you more valuable or more unique. And Ashley, I'll turn it back to you.
Amazing. And I think you made just so many great points there, Chelyn, that really can be summed up by this point here, that humble does not equal hired. And this doesn't mean to go out and be your most braggadocious, bragging self in the entire world. It just means that you are an Audi, and you should not let people think for even a second that you're a Hyundai. And on Hyundais, that is just the type of car that I personally have, so it felt like safe territory for comparison. So if you have a Hyundai, you're in good company, you're with me. But if you're really an Audi, let people think that you are a Hyundai. And truly, break away from the weeds here. Don't let people, or not don't let people, but make sure people know that this was your specific contribution. I think sometimes we do get trapped in the weeds of things. As a team, this is what we accomplished. But what were the things that you did? To point those out and make sure to own own what you've done, and really own the fact that you are unique, and that understand that people are always going to know why you're unique right off the bat. Sometimes you do kind of have to spell it out. You do have to highlight it in great detail with that's the first chance you get. So this is your space to not be, although that is a great characteristic to have, this is not the space to be your whole self. You can write down that you are humble on your resume, but yeah, make sure to highlight all of your statistics and what you have really achieved. And make sure to ditch your statement. This is a bit of an outdated practice nowadays. One of the new trends that we have seen in a really, really big way. And yeah, first and foremost, get out ahead and into theirs. And what we really mean by this is start thinking from the perspective of the hiring manager that you're reaching out to. One of the best methods that we've come far to do this is called the 5 whys method. And personally, I call it the so what method. This is just kind of going through your various responsibilities and asking yourself for what a handful of times. Up to 5 recommended. 3 can sometimes get you all the way there, but to give a little bit of an example on how this would work in a totally non-technical capacity, I like to use a restaurant analogy. So say you're at dinner and your food is just taking exceptionally long to come out. You can wonder all day long, but if you start asking yourself, so what, you can get to the root cause of this problem and understand why the restaurant might be taking a little bit longer. So first you ask yourself, so what? The food is taking longer. So what? So the restaurant can't seat new customers. Okay, so what? So I might have gone a little down off tangent here, but as online, you can get to the point that food is taking much longer to come out because there are no clean dishes, which causes the food to be stalled within their preparation plates, which causes food not getting out to the tables and makes everything just a big debacle. And as you do this with your career and with your resume, you can really get to the meat and to the quantities and to the deliverables of what your achievements were at various companies and various positions, and really let people know what you can do for them in that next position, what you have achieved in the past, and what you're capable of moving forward.
Yeah, I love that example because so often we can talk about what we're responsible for and we forget to share what the intro is, like, and what the story is. And with that restaurant example, it's like you can jump right away to they have, they're part of this whole, they can't hire enough people, they have bad training, there's food issues, there's kitchen problems, and that whole breaking that down, they discovered the problem really was that they needed to order more dishes. And so it was just those really good examples. And Stephanie, we will go into, without the objective statement, what else? So in the objective statement, there's one carve out to that, and we'll show you in a minute what's next. The one time it would make sense to have an objective statement, perhaps, is if you're making a really big shift that doesn't make any sense looking at your resume, that it's really difficult, and we'll show why. But in general, that sort of screams outdated. So Ashley, let me switch this slide. There we go.
Yeah. And also just kind of going off what you were saying, like an objective statement kind of keeps you in the mentality of what do I want to get out of? It keeps you in your head versus the hiring managers, and switch over to the so what and showing what you can do for someone else. You kind of just get in that sweet spot of laying yourself and your capabilities to the hiring manager in the way that appeals most strongly. But next up, and certainly a great segue, and explore your impact. These are just that we thought of to really start thinking about what you have done in your past roles and what you can do for your future positions and opportunities that you're chasing. And just a couple here are, how did you specifically generate revenue for your company? How have you impacted market awareness, brand reputations? How have you brought in leads and attracted customers for your past company? We do have a couple more here. In what ways have you created happier customers and helped retain them? How have you helped save money or reduce costs? What have you made easier or more efficient? And these are definitely not all of the questions that you ask yourself. And here's a couple more even. What impact have you had on employees' happiness and retention? And how have you improved teamwork, employee satisfaction? all of the above. The questions indeed endless, but these are really a great way to start asking yourself and making yourself realize how amazing you are, realizing that you are the Audie on the street and you deserve the best possible picture of yourself. And that screenshot would be your resume professionally.
Yeah, exactly. And I think taking that, stepping away from a computer, even just getting a journal and kind of thinking back to your jobs and really getting in touch with what was the difference that you made. And sometimes, especially as you go through time and you have different experiences, I know that we talk to a lot of people who are in the Salesforce world, but their past wasn't. And they feel like, well, maybe I'm going to have to be in a really junior role, but they're forgetting about all the impact and the great stories and great examples that are so transferable. And sometimes you've got to kind of step back and away from the resume to really look at that. I'd say the other question that we get asked all the time is, what's the best format? And I would like to sort of caveat something here. And there are recruiters that you're going to work with and companies that have a strong opinion about the format. They want it in a certain way. It will help you. And I would definitely ask and be open to providing things in a format that they want and that they will use. That being said, I would say for the most part, my belief is that the format that you choose and the way that you organize and structure your resume really needs to be based on the story you want to tell. What will allow it to be said in the way that you want? How will it help you best, project and allow them to understand who you are, what you have to offer, and reflect what they need to know, what they want to know, given the role that you have right now. And it's all in their perspective too. It's so important. What should you feature about your background? So we see a lot of resumes that are really more past focused. They're not even really updated for the role that they're going for now, but they also don't really even hint to what you want next. So you don't want to overshoot that, right? So if you're applying for a job, you definitely want it custom for what the job is. But especially in an organization where you intend to stay and you want to grow, this is a great chance to sort of bring forward some of the things that would make sense to them for your career path at that organization. And I'd say the most important thing for you to really dive into is what examples, metrics, proof can you share that illustrates the points, that you're not, a lot of people talk about kind of fluffy language, that you're declaring yourself in a particular way, that, you're a high achiever. Well, great. What does that mean? It's really important that you can put some proof. And then I would say the other thing that can make you a little unique and show that you're different is, what about your experiences, your interests, your values align well with the company or hiring managers? And I'll make that point a little bit more when we dive in to the specific example. But you want to make sure that when you're sitting down to work on your resume, that you keep in mind the industry. So resumes that really reflect the industry get a lot more interview requests. So sometimes, and I think Salesforce is a really good example of where you might be open to doing a Salesforce role or another technical role in a lot of different industries. It is important that you reflect the industry for the job that you're looking at, or that you have a category of those. Company specific, it's really important to hone in on what's important to that company, who they're hiring. And we've gone into a lot of those things with other LinkedIn ones. The job category. So as we move forward into this example, you can take job descriptions within a category so that you can create a resume that will work in a lot of different situations. And then getting into specific descriptions, and we'll show you how to customize it in a way that is time efficient. You can gather this information from job descriptions. Unfortunately, certainly Ashley and I and our team have seen a lot of poor job descriptions. So if you can't get the information that you need there, this is a great time to dive in and do informational interviews and other research. So now I want to And we will definitely come back and answer some questions. And for those of you that want to stay on at the end, I'm happy to answer as many questions as you have. But I want to dive into, this is a specific example. And I'd love it if you'd participate and leave some comments. But this is a real job description, and it is for a company called Real, and it's a venture-backed mental health care company based in New York. So they're telling about themselves. And I'd love for you to take a look at this, and what about this description of the company is something that you feel like you should pull out and consider including on your resume. Ashley, anything stand out to you while people are reading?
Yeah. I think there's quite a few things here that might be good to include on my. It's almost hard to pick one.
It is.
There's a lot of keywords here, a lot of descriptive adjective type describers, innovators. They're normalizing mental health. So someone who is inclusive, someone who is empathetic. I think words like that, which I see empathy there and ingrained. So empathy is my final answer.
I love it. I love it. And I think this is such a perfect example of what you can do when if you are like, this is your dream job, is the one we're going to go through. This is a chance to customize your resume, but also your LinkedIn profile, where you can expand this quite a bit. There are a lot of things in here that are the technologists, innovator, clinicians. They have a mission, right? It's a mission-driven company celebrating mental health care. So this is something that, you pull out these words and take the time to think about, what are things that I've done in the past. So let's say if you're a Salesforce, business analyst, this may not be, tied to specifically this work, but you think back to, what have you done on your private time, right? What have you done for volunteering? What are nonprofits that you've supported? It may just bring forward other things that help you stand out as a candidate. So here's another, this is the same job description, the responsibilities and the role, right? So they're looking for creative, results-driven senior partnership manager, right? They're creative, results-driven. You keep looking through here. What are they responsible for? There's negotiation, there's deals, brand messaging. So there's so many things in here that if you just take this line by line and you think, they spend a lot of time to write this. And for recruiters, whether they're internal or external, they've been given this and have been told, go find us candidates. So as recruiting teams, we're actually entering these keywords in and looking for you. So if you don't have these things in your resume, it's going to be really difficult. But even if you don't have this specific element in your job, you can pull it from somewhere else, so that your resume actually includes all the things, or the majority of things that they're looking for. You can be creative about how to share that. So this pulls out, we're looking for teammates who are curious, proactive, willing to ask tough questions. The other thing that I would really encourage you to do at the same time that you're working on your resume is jot down the stories that you're going to tell, because they're looking for all of these things. Your responsibilities are going to be. So if you come prepared, you've documented, you have a great resume that captures the invitation to be interviewed, you refine your LinkedIn profile to be rich with these examples and relationships that supports and gives that, external validation. And then you have your stories and your examples and your metrics. Even if you don't get the question that lets you talk about how you are curious, proactive, willing to ask tough questions, if you've prepared it, you could even say, they could ask an unrelated question and you bring it back around to it. And this really reminds me, I noticed that you were looking for someone who X, Y, or Z. Let me share an example of this so that you can drive that interview in the directions that they've said they wanted when it's appropriate. And here's another piece, is the same, like these job descriptions, if you take the time, they will tell you so much about what they need and what they're searching for. So this is new member growth goals, increasing reach, brand through partnerships. So even if you don't have that in your day job, there's many of us, right, that have worked in helping a community group, right? It could be in a number of different things. Ideally, it's part of your day job and your work. This could be you recognize a gap here, and what do you need to do in the meantime to bolster that? But it talks about the marketing, partnerships, mental health, and tech space. So you can pull out the best examples that you can. And again, so what I often see, and I know our team does, is there's a particular resume and we get it, and it like honestly hurts my heart when I see that people post, I've applied to 1,000 jobs and I have had 2 interviews and no job offers, and no criticism at all. But what that tells me is that it's very unlikely that the time's being spent to make it really custom to that job. And it's a really tough way to find a job. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And if you take the time, they're telling you what you want. So managing workflows, projects, timelines, extremely organized, detail oriented. So there's a number of things, work within resources and budget, somebody who can analyze and interpret metrics. So you can think back through your job and what jobs and experiences and really pull out these things. So this is the list that they said you've got. So this list needs to be on your resume to the best of your ability in the areas that you are sharing. And we'll show you some examples of that. And then they even said something that they included, we're extra stoked if you have created partnerships in the app space and experience driving conversion. So let's say you didn't have that, but how could you really relate that to what you do have? But if you did have this, even if it was unrelated in your main job, if you can highlight the fact that you've created partnerships in the app space and experience driving conversions, and you bring that to the top of your resume, you feature that on your LinkedIn profile, you will stand out amongst so many applicants. And it's the breadcrumbs, right? They've given you the trail of breadcrumbs to follow to land this job. So I'm going to shift here to resumes in general. And Austin has incredible resources. If you don't follow him, I really recommend that you do. This is a template that he will share. It's free. So if you go to cultivatedculture.com, you can actually get his resume profile. I think it's a really good one. But Austin talks about always including a LinkedIn profile. And he did a study that showed like an extreme number of interview requests were tied back to the resumes that included a LinkedIn profile. Many people do not customize their specific link. Google it. If you haven't done it, definitely do that. Instead of including a big string of numbers, get your name, get as close as you can to some derivative of your name is really important. Do not include your mailing address for privacy and just your security, but it's no longer kosher to do that. A lot of the older templates have that. Your email address, please drop the Hotmail accounts. It's like you got to have something that, or I should say, it's smart to have your name, a Gmail account, just something that's more elevated and professional is really smart. So those are a few things there. And instead of, someone asked earlier, well, if we take away our objective statement, the objective statement really talks about what you want and what you're searching for. The summaries, and we'll share a few here, is much more about what they are looking for. So Austin specifically talks about leading with a 5-bullet highlight reel, and I'll show you an example in a moment, that you really need to sell your experience with measurable metrics. And Austin's advice is to really include some cool, awesome, personal details, what makes you unique. Some people don't like that. I think it's really interesting. I know that Ashley talks about one of the customers that she works with often has a martial arts background, and a candidate that had that component, it really created a connection. So it's something that you can show what's different about you, particularly if there's some way to connect it back to the hiring manager, the company, the niche, but it helps you just stand out from the crowd.
And aside from creating your personality, it also shows you have a commitment to doing things long term. Committing to, I mean, sports in and of itself. I mean, Taekwondo is an unusual, I think, example, but any form of sports shows that you do have I'm blanking on the word, but just the tenacity to stick it out and to really pursue something all the way, even if it is more difficult than sitting on the couch and watching your favorite TV show. It does a lot to speak to who you are and what you're working. Sorry, Chelyn.
Absolutely. And I think some of those unique things where, you may not stand out in your work experience yet the same way, but you've really accomplished something, whether that's, sports, your interests, your just something unique. It's a great thing to share. And it's really easy to expand on or incorporate into LinkedIn. But here's an example that Austin shares, and it's having, instead of that objective statement, it's the summary, and there's different ways, and I'll show you two other people's approach, but he recommends using the keywords in the summary. So in this case, it was the sales executive summary. And it's just this kind of broad brush of the summary as it relates to that specific job. So all of this, this will be available after as well. But if you go to Austin's website, he actually has the template and this example. So it's a great way to see, really specific. Andrew is another person that I think has some great advice and some really good YouTube trainings. If you're a TikToker, he does a lot on TikTok as well, kind of short and sweet. But he talks about, and he also has a free template. He talks about there are 6 questions that someone is quickly trying to figure out. And they say that between 5 and 7 seconds is what you have in terms of recruiter time and attention, unless you hook them, and then they'll spend some more time. But this is from the framework of what is that recruiter looking for? They're looking to know, who are you? How experienced are you? What do you know? Where have you worked? Why did you send me your resume? And, when are you available, perhaps? So his structure is a little bit different and has the top section that's kind of a professional overview that's a broader brush, and then getting a little more specifics. So he's another one that I recommend. Just, download them and kind of check them out and see which one fits the best. Heather Austin is another YouTuber and trainer. She has some great information, but she has a really unique top section that I think is fascinating. And I personally like this. I'm going to use it. I'm redoing mine at the moment to use as an example. But she also talks about the importance of the different categories. So what you want to feature, again, goes back to the artistic, the artist in you, of what is that, the colors, what are the textures that make you unique and special in terms of this opportunity. So if you're someone who's done really relevant volunteer experience, you're going to want to bring that up, and you're going to want to use those examples. If that wasn't really what you focused on, then you move it down. If you're somebody that's had awards or publications, professional skills that maybe aren't tied to your work experience, you need to feature that. But if you notice the top of her section here, Heather really recommends, yes, you ran a 100-mile race. Absolutely. I'd include that on LinkedIn. Absolutely. Because not many people have ever done it, one, and not many people are going to put in the effort and the commitment to see that through. So back to Heather's resume template, what she recommends is just doing this top section, perhaps throughout the rest, but if you've done a nice job creating a base of your resume for the category of job that you're looking for, it will work for a lot of things. But her recommendation is to actually change this customer success manager for Salesforce developer. And what are three, 4 of the elements that are what you have? Like we went back into the example, and include those here and have a little summary that's tied to your profession that really connects the dots for them and goes, oh, yeah, we definitely need to talk to this person. I need to learn more. And at the end of the day, that's what's important. So go back to the design, right? That Apple design, the white space, all of that. Nobody's going to read, I should say, very few people ever will actually read your resume. But what they will do is get hooked in and think, I want to meet you. And you want that to happen as quickly as possible. And here's another one that's a little bit of a different take. And I apologize. I will figure out who this is. Her name dropped off on the slide, and I need to pull that back up. So I will make a note in the comments. She has a unique one, and it has more at the top. So if you have the experience and the career path that covers, that your career progression actually includes the things that somebody wants to see and it's spelled out in your work history, don't worry about this. But if you're someone who's making more of a change or elevating into like going from an individual contributor to a manager, but your work experience doesn't feature this, this is an outline. This is the top section of the resume. It does include all the rest of the typical, but this is something that I think is really unique. And that is pulling out the things. Again, it is the exact job description. It's the key elements that are important. It's a little summary of who you are and maybe those 3 descriptors. And for those of you who have done the LinkedIn sessions with me, I always talk about having 3 to 5 things you want to be known for. This is perfect. So you're a sourcing maverick, a diversity champion, and a digital content expert. This could tie beautifully back to your LinkedIn profile. In this little line here, it's maybe something that you've won, something you've been recognized for, and then spelling out your areas of expertise. So I think that you can probably tell by now that there are no right answers, and there are strong preferences that people have, and there's different ways to approach it. But one last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll dive into some questions, is the resume bullets. And we walked through already the so what and the whys and that process, and that's really helpful. But if you want something a little more structured, when you're going at each bullet, and this is going to be true on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure that it's clear what difference did you personally make. So not the team. Try not to use we, maybe 10% of the time. You might want to throw in some team-oriented successes. But in general, it's what difference did you make? What was the impact? What was the benefit? Metrics, by how much? And I really encourage you to keep records of this over time. It's really hard to go back. The context. Sometimes you really need to paint that picture of what to what, what was the before and after, or when to when, so that you have a bit of context in what you've been working on and how it worked. What specifically did you use? What tools, technologies, resources? And then for whom? Like who you might have been working for or working with on this project, who was impacted. So those are a few of the really important bullets there. So let me transition here and answer some questions. Let me go back up here. Let's see. I love that. My resume looks like a parked car. I honestly have to tell you, I had promised myself I would have my resume done by today. And it was painful. The last resume that I have is something that I got from a friend at Google. And it has a one page, has my picture on it, has these really cool columns and icons and all the things I know that you should not use for submitting resumes. So I've been working on my own, and it is really challenging. But I would say the parked car, yes. So together we'll move those over to that beautiful Audi on the road, and I will share mine as I go. And I'm documenting the journey. So Lori asked, if a recruiter reaches out for a time and day to chat with email address and phone number, not asking for a resume, should the candidate be proactive sending the resume or wait? I think that really depends. If it's always going to be a good thing to have a chance to connect and build a relationship. So it depends on if the resume is going to really be a good thing to lead with. I think in general, the more that you can have a customized resume, the better. So unless you know what the opportunity is, I would probably recommend setting up the time, and it can be brief, to connect and ask some questions. Because, for instance, you have the Healthcare Heroes Force members, which bless you all. And if your resume is off the mark, then it's not going to help you. But if you do have a good sense, then yeah, I think the more you can get your resume in front of people and connect it to your LinkedIn profile, definitely have your LinkedIn profile listed. That's all the better. Career gaps. I think it's important to just be honest, and you can have it as a line and be very brief. LinkedIn has, and this is when it's hard. It's really, I think I come from a bit back in the day where it was even more challenging to have those gaps. I think it's much more common today. So LinkedIn actually allows you, and they have the category of why you have a career gap. I think taking the opportunity to frame it with how you, and this may or may not be true. I mean, some of you have, like, I took a year off and wanted to go snowboarding. Like, good for you. That's great. Some of you that are off right now, like unexpected layoffs, the more you can connect it to what might be of value to that hiring manager. So if you had time out for a layoff, did you take classes? Did you do a side hustle? Did you pursue a dream? Whatever those things are, but I'd be really brief in them. I would also just be very proud and matter of fact. So what I hear often in private one-on-one kind of coaching conversations is a tone of voice and sort of like overly explaining, like leaning into a little bit of shame around it. It's just not necessary. So I think just be really brief and be very clear. And if you can feature things that would be of value to that organization for the job that you want, and it's during that gap, bring those forward, use those examples. I know a lot of people who are parents run into this where they've got this big gap, but they've done some incredible things during that time. And others, they just took time off. They had different priorities. Just own it. The importance of, let's see, we talked about that. Let's see, career gap. Hope that helps a bit with the career gap. I think it also is, I know we've had that question a couple of times. Practice that. Have someone ask you about the gap and practice your answer. That's something that I would say. The viewpoint regarding the same keywords in a resume of those listed in the job requirements. So my viewpoint about keywords and job descriptions, 100%. You need as many that are in the job description as makes sense and is relevant. If you don't have something that's a featured keyword, then you should be prepared for, do I need to learn something so that I don't lose out to someone who has that, or at least be prepared for it. And for those of you who don't know, I'm obsessed with ChatGPT. I think it's incredible. You can actually take the keyword, put it into ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT to evaluate it against your resume, and it will tell you where the overlap is or where your gaps may be. You can also use word clouds, and there's a different strategies, but I would say as many as possible. You don't want it to have the exact lines, like, you don't want someone to read it and think, oh my gosh, this is my job description, but you absolutely want to bring forward every example possible. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is optimized with skills and things. That's another area that people forget. You don't want to have to customize LinkedIn all the time, but in general, most of you are looking for a category of jobs that are going to take certain skills, experiences, and as you grow and as you identify what's next, you want to continually update that. So yes, it's absolutely a good best practice. Some experts say, Andrew, maximize the space, and others recommend keeping good margins and white space. My personal opinion goes back to Apple, right? White space is critical. You also need to look at your resume, both in, email if somebody's on their computer and on mobile, and they need to be easy to read. I would absolutely remove things before I would take away margins and white space. You want to pick fonts that are pleasing to the eye, that are modern. You can Google those. They're easy to find. You want to move away from anything that's, a little too creative. You just clean, definitely white space. You want your fonts to be, 11, 12. You want headers to be in that 12 to 14. So just, if you look at things, you'll see the difference. Those of you that like color, it's like not a good plan. However, I would say using that Salesforce blue in a couple key places is not going to cause problems with the ATS systems. All the photos, I would say, and I had one on my last resume, they are not advisable for a number of reasons. So really don't recommend that. The column type of resumes can cause a lot of problems when they're loading your information into computer systems. You just want to avoid that. So keeping them really simple, the better. The less you want to use very commonly known titles. So if you work for a company or have in the past that had kind of something sort of clever and unique, but nobody really knows what it means, go ahead and convert it into sort of an industry accepted title. There's nothing wrong with making that something that people would recognize. If you participated in a career development program, where should that go in your resume? Work experience, education, separate section. My answer to that is really going to depend on the rest of your work experience. So if you have the work experience that you need to be fully qualified and prepared for the role you're going for, then I would absolutely then put that into like a professional development education section. However, if you're somebody who's making a big change, you may need to find a way to really incorporate that into something that feels more like an experience section. So for those of you that are part of this talent stacker community, you've seen a way to do that. So again, it really depends on the job, and it depends on what else is on your resume. And going back to that idea of crafting the organization in a way that brings forward the things that you want to feature and highlight that are going to be valued by the organization for that particular job. And yes, Lori, hooray for the healthcare heroes. Absolutely. Okay. Cover letters. Laura, I'm so glad you asked this. Are they still necessary? And how do you make it different than your resume? I love cover letters, and I have gotten into a couple of very spicy conversations online about them. There are some very, very well-respected and experts in this space that think they are gone, should never be asked for. I think it gives you a very unique opportunity to convey a message. I think the ones that are like, hi, I'm interested in this job and here's my background and I look forward to hearing from you, like, don't bother, that nobody's going to read it. But if it's something that allows you to bring forward something that you are excited about, that's unique about you, that is unique about the person that you're sending it to, I think that's really important. If you are somebody that's making some kind of a pivot where and I did this where my background was very sales oriented and then I was pivoting into a completely different kind of category of a job, it gave me a chance to paint that picture just a little bit and make it relevant for the role. So there's some really good things to, YouTube videos that show some great templates. The same people that I shared in the prior resume examples, they have some great cover letter templates as well. And I feel like the same way about thank you letters. Should they be required? I don't know. I was raised by a Southern mother, so I kind of feel yes. And frankly, I think hiring managers should probably send thank you letters to great candidates too. But both of those give you a chance to be unique and say something unique. The thank you letters allows you to walk away and think about what's something really creative or innovative, or share a resource, or just do something to stand out. So I would really encourage you there. Let's see, Tim, I was told by a recruiter to remove the career gap, but be prepared to address it should it be brought up. And that could be really good advice too. I think it depends on what else is on your resume. It's a little difficult if you've got kind of this big gap where it's so obvious because you've got a number of years. But I do think, Tim, that's a good advice from a marketing perspective and putting out what's out there. You don't have to have every minute accounted for. So it really does depend. If you have enough things to bring forward, yes, be prepared to handle it. So yeah, it kind of depends on the rest of the story. And I think what's most important is to keep the focus on what you do have and the experience you have and the training you have and the passion you have. Is there a good site to use to redesign my resume? I would have pointed you in the direction of a couple, but the research around resumes and my experience of the past 6 months honestly says the more simple, the better. So I would really encourage you to download the resume templates that I shared with you earlier and take a look at those and adapt them. There's also some, really good people that do this for a living. Once you are clear about the, picture that you want to paint and what you want to communicate, it could be money well spent working with an expert, because honestly, it's so nice to have that package of your beautiful resume, a cover letter, thank you letters, all that look the same. Let's see, what's the best way to format a resume when you're coming out of a completely different industry? I've been in the casino industry specifically for 12 years. Historically, people recommended doing more of the functional resumes where you're bringing information to the top and bringing your experience down and handling that different. The feedback and the advice that I've received and it is just that that's not advisable, that as much as possible, having that sort of that chronological, your story of your career progression. But for you, those 3 examples, Stephanie, of having a section at the top that has makes the connection for what you're moving into, what you're bringing that are relevant, that use the right career, keywords, that would be important. And honestly, Stephanie, if you want to reach out, I'd be happy to walk through this with you specifically. Let's see. Once I have a good base, how long should I be spending on each update? Okay, so this is my recommendation for a base resume. I would highly recommend that you have one custom base resume and that it can go on for pages. That when you're adding a bullet. So let's say for me, when I was at Moda Health, that when I was in sales, I have very sales related bullets. When I moved into partnership managers, I had different bullets. So, but instead of having different resumes, that you keep one document that has all the resume bullets and examples and just put a parentheses of what kind of role it's related to. What makes that really nice is when you're ready to customize it, you just remove what you don't want instead of which version am I looking at and recreating. So I would say if you are going for the same type of job, so let's say Salesforce administrator, you should have a really nice base that will cover most jobs, and that you just need to do a review of the job description, update that top section to bring forward anything that might like really spark their interest based on your research. But I would say, you know, it depends on the job and how much you want it. If it's one you really want, I would say I would definitely carve out an hour and make sure that it's perfect for what you're going for. If you don't have the hour, spend the time you can. And for those of you that are searching and not currently working, it's a job. I mean, honestly, it's a lot of hours, but it will pay off. And you only need one yes. Let's see. The replay will automatically happen when we end here. And thank you. I know we're staying long. I just want to answer everyone's questions. It will just automatically convert to the recording. Chat GPT to the rescue for cover letters. Yes, Lori, it's, oh my gosh, it's like a whole nother topic. I just can't start on it. But I would absolutely say reach out to Lori. Look at YouTube. It is brilliant. You can put the job description in ChatGPT and then put your resume and ask it to help you craft a custom cover letter. And they're amazing. It's definitely a good thing to start with. Okay, Tim, you were asked for a cover letter for a job I applied for in order to move forward. Sometimes, honestly, this cover letter requirement isn't even, they're not even going to read it. They just are putting some hoops on the front end to see who will jump through them. It's sad to say, but it's just the way it is. So there are certain things that some people are putting some hoops for you to jump to make sure that you're going to be somebody who's paying attention. One strategy that people have is they'll have a line, and if you read the directions, they'll say, add a line about, purple elephant in your cover letter, just something ridiculous. But what it does is it makes sure if they're looking for someone who's detail oriented, that you're paying attention and that you're really invested. I don't know, how to say whether that's a good thing or not, but I would say cover letters can't hurt unless you write a really bad one, but spend the time, bring it forward, share something you've gleaned. It really can only help, in my opinion. And I can promise you there's some really wonderful people in the community who totally disagree with me, and that's okay. Okay, let's see. The gap. So Tim, yes. And if your gap was a year, I think that's exactly like having that gap. There's no need to point that out on LinkedIn or your resume, but definitely be prepared to have the details to include, especially when you're getting into their system and having to update it. Should a link to your trailblazer.me profile be on your resume? I think actually it's a really great idea to have the trailblazer.me profile on your resume, and you definitely want it on your LinkedIn profile, and you want to make sure all of your certifications are linked back to the official place that shows that they're real. So yes, that's really important. So yes, I love how you guys are answering each other's questions. Okay. When I made my first Salesforce resume, I made a beautiful resume on Canva, and everyone has told me the simple resume is best. Okay, so Adriana, I'm obsessed with Canva. When you're submitting your resume, simple is absolutely best. I would say, however, networking or right before, like if you're having any kind of informational interview, um, yeah, networking or asking somebody to maybe pass along your resume, having this beautiful, and the other place that has these kind of templates is Salesforce Ben has their resume templates do not fall into what's advisable from the ATS systems, but they're really cool and they're set in their size so that you can put your certifications in. So I would say, and I definitely will do this myself, is I'm going to have a submission one. I'm not interviewing, but it's always good to have one. You have one that you can submit. It'll run through the ATS systems, easy to read, but I will also have a Canva one myself that is just, kind of more, I don't know, marketing oriented and looks beautiful. And so I encourage you, Adriana, keep it and use it in different ways, but definitely don't submit it. Okay, I think, yep, love that. A master cover letter that you edit for each company. I think that's a really good idea. All right. Thank you all so much. I so appreciate you being here. And we'll be back next Thursday with a really different event. And I'll be posting that tomorrow. So thank y'all. Bye.